And nobody wants to see my face. There we go. No, I'm not gonna be. I'm gonna be over there.
Does he have a lot of visuals?
Yeah, you can watch it on that screen or that screen.
Go ahead and stand there, man.
Okay.
That's the big print version.
No, we both do. Wednesday and Thursday.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Marquette Regional History Center. I am Marty Atkins. I'm the Adult Programming Coordinator for Peter White Public Library. And I'm so excited to be here with our wonderful partner, the History Center, to introduce Tyler and talk a little bit about the NEA Big Read. So you probably all know what this is about since you're here. But I want to highlight and thank a few organizations. One is the National Endowment for the Arts and Arts Midwest. Arts Midwest is are the ones that administer the NEA degree for the NEA. And we have lots of programs coming up besides this one, although this is the most important one tonight. But next week, Monday, this is the one that I really want to emphasize. If you haven't picked up your copy of Ross Chat's book, Can We Talk About Something More Pleasant? There are still copies available for free. All you got to do is go to the circulation desk at Peter White Public Library and request one. And I think I brought down the last 40 copies out of 200 that we ordered, so they're going pretty fast. So if you want one of those, please stop by the library and pick one up. Monday night at 6:30 p.m., we have our keynote presentation from Roz Chast, the author of Can't We Talk About Something More Pleasant? She will be joining us via Zoom on the big screen, so you will be able to interact with her. And we have Elizabeth Peterson, who formerly of WLUC, who is going to be moderating that event. So really wonderful, and that is also a time where you'll be able to ask Roz Chast any questions. We'll be collecting those questions for Elizabeth to pose to Roz Chast as much as she can. And then also a couple other things that are happening next week. Tuesday the 11th in the Heritage Room from 4 to 5:30 p.m. we have writer V.G. Bradley, who's going to be leading a memoir writing workshop that day. V.G.'s a wonderful, wonderful teacher. He taught writing for 30 years at the high school level at Westwood. So he's just a really, really wonderful writer. And then we have the Marquette Poets Circle. That's going to be meeting on Thursday from 6:30 to 8 p.m. in the Shiras Room. And then next Friday, I'll just do one more. How's that? One more. We're going to be showing our docu-cinema, which is a documentary called Very Semi-Serious, which is about New Yorker cartoonists. And Roz Chast is featured in that documentary as one of the New Yorker cartoonists. So lots of great stuff coming up, and that documentary is a gift actually from the producer, because I couldn't find it anywhere. I was looking for where I could get it to, and I found the producer shouldn't do this. They put their email address up there, and so you can email them. And they were very kind to send me a copy for free and say, we're not even going to charge you for this. So really wonderful people. And last but not least, we do have surveys over there that I asked if you could fill one out for me. That's one of the requirements of doing a grant like this. And it also proves to the federal government that programs like this are very, very important and should be supported by the federal government. So please take some time to fill out one of those surveys for me. All right, well, my job now is to introduce Tyler Tichelaar. Tyler and I go back a very, very long time, probably over 30 years now. We were in the master's program at Northern Michigan University together, and then I migrated down to Western Michigan University, and Tyler followed a year or so later, I think, something like that. And in that time since, he has published 25. He's probably working on his 26th right now. I think he is, see? He has published 25 books, which is an astounding output for any writer, maybe except Stephen King. But, you know, it's an astounding output for a writer because it took me 25 or 30 years to write 2 books. So, you know, that's and Tyler is just a wonderful presenter, so knowledgeable on so many subjects. And I'm so excited to welcome him here today to talk about Charlie Toboggan. So please give a big hand to Tyler Tichelaar.
Thank you, Marty. Can everybody hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you all for coming. I've talked about Chief Toboggan a few times in the past, so I'm glad to see that people are still interested and there's still a crowd coming out to hear his story. And I want to say thank you to the Peter White Public Library and the Marquette Regional History Center for this program. They're my 2 favorite places in Marquette, probably, so it would be a better combination. So I started writing about Chief Toboggan because you probably know I've written, like Marty said, 25 books total, and one of my earliest books was My Marquette, which is one of my most popular ones. And there I wrote a little bit about Chief Toboggan, and he makes some like cameo appearances in a couple of my novels. And so one day I was at the Christmas show at the Dome, and someone came up to me and said, "Oh, I really enjoyed what you said about Chief Toboggan because I didn't really know anything about him." And I thought, well, I just kind of repeated what everybody else has said about Chief Toboggan, and so I started thinking about it. There's got to be more about Chief Toboggan than just the few facts that most people know. And so I just became very interested in looking into his story. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to find a whole lot. This is going to be a small book, probably 100 pages. Well, it's 400 and some pages, and 3 years of research, and that resulted in the book that you see there up on the screen. And there's lots of misinformation that was out there about Chief Toboggan, so that's why I went with the title, The Chief, the Legend, and the Man. I wanted to try as much as possible to get down to who he was, who he really was, but at the same time acknowledge that he was a chief, and then there's some mythical stuff that needs to be worked out. So most people that are from Marquette who know about Chief Toboggan know him largely from this sign at his grave, which says he was born in 1799 and died in 1902. He's the last chief of the local Chippewa Indians, which is kind of one of those myth things. His wife is listed there, but it doesn't say it's his wife, but Charlotte Toboggan, the daughter of Chief Majgisik, and they lived at Prescott for many years, and they're buried at Prescott. So that may be all a lot of people know about Toboggan. So I want to start with him being born, and that date, the sign says 1799 to 1902, and so he's famous for having lived in 3 centuries. I don't think he actually did, but let me start out by explaining why that date is on the sign. Now we know for certain he died in 1902. There are the death records from the city. We know he died at St. Mary's Hospital in Marquette. So that date is not in question. The 1799 date is, first of all, there were no settlers in Marquette. He was actually born at the Sioux, and there were no birth records for Native Americans at that time. So what happened is Marquette, as most of you know, was founded in 1849. And when Marquette was founded, Peter White was one of the first people to arrive on a boat to start the city. And Toboggan was already here. He had his wigwam on the shore, and a lot of the white settlers stayed in the wigwam with him in Charlotte. And Peter White was only 18 years old, and he had already traveled around a great deal of the Great Lakes and lived at Mackinac Island for a time and learned to speak Ojibwe. So So he was one of the few people that could speak to Chief Kabaka tribe. Kabaka didn't speak English. And Peter White, in one of his memoirs, he said, just for kind of the sake of making conversation, I asked Kabaka how old he was. And Kabaka said, I'm 50 years old. And then he listed, I lived at the Sioux for 20 years, I lived in Ontario for 10 years, I lived at Tichelaar for 20 years. And those numbers add up to 50. And so that's where the 1799 date comes from. If you subtract 50 from 1849, he was born in 1799. Now that's what he told Peter White, or at least what Peter White has told us that Kabaka told him. Pretty much everything we know about Kabaka has been filtered through white people who recorded things that he said, so we don't have any written record from Kabaka himself, so you have to keep that in mind. I also think Peter White liked to exaggerate now and then a little bit, so there's that also. But the truth of the matter is that he was probably born much later than that. His earliest memory is of an event. He said his earliest memory was remembering his uncle wearing a British soldier's uniform. And the Native Americans here in the UP sided with the British in the War of 1812. And so for a long time it was thought that his uncle fought in the War of 1812 and he remembered seeing him in his uniform, which would mean his earliest memory might date to about 1812 or so, when he probably was maybe 3 or 4 years old. Well, actually, that's not even the case. His uncle did fight in the War of 1812, but the event Kabaka remembered happened in 1820. And to understand that, let me share a little bit of his family before I go into that story. So another question a lot of people have, as I was writing the book, they said, oh, he wasn't really a chief, was he? Well, because there wasn't there was no reservation here. There wasn't a large Native American settlement in Marquette, but there was a group that lived out at Presque Isle at the time Kabaka died. Well, the truth of the matter is that as far as the Ojibwa go, if they had royalty, Kabaka was royalty. So if you look at his family tree here, you can see at the very top is the Great Crane, who was his great-grandfather. And then his great-grandfather had 4 sons. And then if you look over at the far